Welcome to the session today, hosted by Tech in Asia and Netcore. Today we're going to be talking about retention and doing it with a customer-first mindset. I'm really excited about some of the panelists we've got today. We've really brought in some of the who's who within the digital-first companies and marketing leaders across some really interesting both fintech and edutech industries. Yes, it's an hour-long session today. So please stay engaged through the session. We've got Marisha Hasram from Mindvalley, the CMO there, who's going to be joining us, along with David Harling, the CMO of Money Smart. But firstly, before we actually get into the full panel session today, we are joined by our co-host Netcore, and Sakit Jha will be setting the scene for us today. I'm Scott Pugh. I'm the Regional Vice President, General Manager of Mixpanel. We're a product analytics software, and we're gonna start today with Sakit setting the scene from Netcore's perspective, a technology that really helps companies engage and retain their users through a customer-first engagement platform. So, Sakit, I'm going to hand over to you to kick us off.
Hey, thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you all joining for this event. And I would like to thank Tech in Asia for arranging this event. What we are going to do, and I think I have a task at hand, which Scott has given me to kind of set the context for this event. And I'm going to quickly run you through some of the slides which I have curated for this event, primarily to introduce the context for this overall event. So let me just share the screen. While I'm sharing the screen, a brief intro about me. I'm Sakit. I'm driving revenue for Netcore for the emerging market, which is APAC and the META region. So yeah, working with my sales team to drive the revenue for my company. So Netcore is primarily a customer engagement and an experience platform, which helps brand to do increase in conversion, helping establishing better customer engagements and helping in better retention. So without taking too much of time, let me deep dive into the context which is here, and I think the theme of the event which has been set out, primarily driving mobile app retention with the customer mindset. So if you look at typically a app journey, which most of all are aware about, so start with an acquisition, you have an onboarding phase, where you kind of tend to activate your users, then you drive your engagement, and parallelly you have your existing customers also where the engagements are happening, and then your retention. And eventually, while we are retaining your customers, I think loyalty play a very vital role there. And since you're retaining your customer, it leads to the referrals, right? And then the best part of it is when it goes back to the new customer acquisition, when the referrals, you get word of mouth about the experience which you are giving to your customers, you tend to have more customers also joining in as a new customer of yours. If you look at primarily onboarding and retention, to drive both of these things, engagement plays a very vital role. And I'm going to talk about in this event primarily about the retention specifically, and I have something interesting also to share with you all. Let's talk about in terms of retention, right? It's no longer only about revenue. It is basically helping in the bottom line and the revenue in terms of the profit. And some of the stats which I have pulled it out, basically, so if your retention rate increases by 5%, your profit increases by in tune of 25 to 95%, which is very remarkable. A 2% increase in the customer retention is equivalent to 10% decrease in the cost. And likewise, a first-time purchase value which is there, a loyal customer which you have is worth 10 times of that. So these are some of the things which is helping brands today to be profitable by having their retention strategy well in place. And I'm going to talk about the customer first mindset, right? As the concept itself speaks about, The customer is the center, right? They are sitting in the center, and everything which we do revolves around how can we look at the customer and drive our engagement, their experience, and try to give them how do we get them to the value which as a brand which we are promising to them. That lies to the core of the customer mindset. So on all the digital properties which the brand have today, omni-channel personalization is important, so that you personalize your content across the channels. You do a very contextual engagement across your channels, and then you delight your customers with the product experience which you have. And I'm going to deep dive here on this product experience and the contextual thing which we are talking about. So if you look at this from the straight line onboarding concept, right, which talks about there are two bumpers basically where you want your users to value the experience on the app. There are two bumpers which are there which will help you to kind of make sure that users do follow that and they get the value as quickly as possible from the app which you are having, or the mobile or the website which is there. So you have a conversational bumper which primarily prompts users while sending an email and an SMS, wherein you get back the customers who have dropped off. And then you have a product bumper also which is there, which kind of works wherein you nudge your customers with the help of a tooltip, and you guide your users within an app while the users are there, so that you are able to achieve this straight line onboarding. And this is a fairly simple concept, wherein with the conjunction of conversational bumper and the product bumper, you're able to achieve the straight line onboarding. If you look at overall, right, I'm going to also introduce how do you achieve this with the help of contextual nudges and the walkthrough. It helps you in terms of doing an intelligent onboarding. If you want your users to discover some of the new features which you have built on your mobile app or on your website, it helps you do that. It helps you also in terms of the product adoption, and I'm going to give you some examples in my latest slide that how do we do it, some examples which I have curated for this. And there's an interesting concept, right? Primarily, I think we're very popular in the product side of it in terms of the habit forming loop, right? Wherein how do you create a habit loops for your customers, wherein how can they get the value from your product in a very simplistic way, in a very minimum path which they have to follow, and also in terms of the experimentation which I'm going to talk about. So if you look at this use case, right, where this is a telco major app, and with the help of I'm going to run this video quickly just to showcase. So with the help of coach marks and the beamers, as you can see here, the beacons, and with the help of tooltip, all the users are guided who have not used the wallet yet in this telco app, right? And that has given them a 2x increase in people using the wallet. Some different use cases here again in terms of as you can see, these coach marks which have been put it at a place where we want users to look at some new products which have been introduced, or we want users to look at those specific icon in the app that kind of helps them navigate through an app very easily without impending any experience. That is also one of the things. There are a lot of communication which are today happening which are very intrusive in nature. With the help of coach marks, with the help of these tool tips, you can give a very better customer experience to your customers. Another use case here, if you look at primarily a gaming app wherein users are there who are playing games, but they are not participating in the tournament, right? You can create these kind of coach marks there, wherein you can guide users in terms of creating this spotlight on that specific icon where you want your users to look at. And same goes with the second poker company, wherein you want users to look at how to drive play for the first time and kind of onboard the user seamlessly. You can use these tool tips with the combination of a beacon. Another interesting use case which is there, where you look at when you're talking about a feature discovery, you can have this spotlight created for all the new features which you are launching in your mobile app or on your website. And that has given a remarkable uplift of around 82% for users to look at that feature, unlike the other channel of communication when you use any like say push notification or an email to communicate to your set of users about the uh, new features which you are launching, right? And likewise, it also helps you in terms of if you're using this tooltip, it will also help you in terms of driving the registrations. The way most of the examples which I have shown is on the mobile app. When you look at the web as well, you can use these tooltips very intelligently, wherein you can put this tooltip guiding users to take a next action, and all of those things revolves around that what is the next appropriate action for the customer to take it, and where you want your customer to take a next action, so you can basically guide users to that specific step. And this is another example. I think some of you would be knowing this brand. This is a Firefly, wherein the login icon is highlighted with the spotlight, and when going on the app, it is highlighted in a way that if I will just run this video here, you can see how does an airline company can use this to highlight their premium class and get the users attention on the premium offering, what are the benefits which they have. And that is very meaningful for the customers to look at this specific segment of it. All of these things which you have seen in the last 6-7 use cases which I have shown is primarily powered by our no-code platform, wherein it gives a lot of agility to product guys, growth guys, to experiment and to give this kind of user experience to customers, while driving the conversion also in all the funnels where you want your users to be looking at it. So this is the concept, guys, which I thought is meaningful today while we are talking about this theme about retention. This contextual walkthroughs could be really helpful for all the brands to drive this retention on the keeping customer in the center. So that's the last slide from my side. Thank you, and really appreciate for hearing me out. For any query which you have, I know I will pass it to Scott now, but any query which you have, I will be happy to answer that. You can put it into chat box while we are proceeding to the next section. We'll be happy to answer that.
Excellent. Thanks, Sakit.
Over to you, Scott.
Cheers. That set the scene very nicely. Some really excellent data points in there, specifically around like retention and the importance of retention. So one of the stats, increasing customer retention rates by 5% can increase profits by 25 to 95%. And a lot of the time, like we're joined by some illustrious CMOs today, but a lot of the time from a marketing perspective, like it's been very much focused on the reach and acquisition side. So I'm looking forward to delving into retention for a lot of these digital first products today. So if we could welcome back Marisha and David to the panel. Thanks very much. Thanks, David. Thanks, Marisha.
Hey, thanks, Scott.
We will kick off by, if you could, we'll start with you, Marisha. If you could just introduce yourself, just a bit about your background and about Mindvalley as a business, as a product, that would be great.
Awesome. So hi, guys. Thank you for joining us today. I am Marisha Hasram. I am CMO of Mindvalley. I handle everything acquisition to retention related. I work for a company called Mindvalley. We're an ed tech company. Our aim is to democratize education, where we create a virtual campus and provide anyone, anywhere, with the best education, access to the best thought leaders, and basically connect them to a global network. So something interesting to note about our experience is that when we started off, we were a transactional company. We sold single programs, like the one-off courses. And now this year, we're actually making a pivot to 100% subscription. So we're kind of new in the space, but we've had some incredible learnings over the last 12 months, and I will highlight some of them a bit later.
Excellent. Thanks, Marisha. I look forward to you sharing some of those learnings as the business pivot. It's a fantastic product, Mindvalley. So I look forward to you sharing a little bit more. David, over to you. If you'd like to just give an introduction of yourself and a bit about MoneySmart.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Super excited to be involved. Afternoon to everyone. So I'm David. I'm the Group CMO for the MoneySmart Group. MoneySmart, for those who don't know, is sort of Asia's largest personal finance marketplace. We sort of tend to sort of match our customers with financial products and support their journey through fairly substantial financial decisions. I've been in this role now 4 years. My background is 15 years marketing. Came from the UK, been in the region around 7 years. I'm really looking forward to this debate.
Excellent. Thanks, David. And we've got quite a good obviously this is a Tech and Asia event, but we're representing from across the Asia region. Marisha, you're from a rainy KL right now. In fact, you were mentioning that your Wi-Fi might be a bit choppy because yeah, it seems to affect it when the downpours come. And David, you're living up in sunny Indonesia right now as well.
I am. Correct.
Yeah, and Sakit and I, we're holding the fort here in Singapore under lockdown. We're good. We're all good here. So yeah, firstly, I'd like to really kick off in terms of talking about retention as it stands from. We'll start with you, Marisha, as being a CMO. I think there's always this really sort of laser-like focus on like acquisition, get more people into the platform, let's grow our numbers, the sort of vanity metrics of how many visits, how many sessions we're having with our with new users. Tell me about how you are Mindvalley are thinking about retention and how you've sort of, I suppose, thinking about the sort of life cycle of your customer and the importance of retention within your business.
So it's kind of aligned to what Sakit was talking about. So retention is kind of fairly new for us because the subscription product is only 12 months old. But how we're looking at it is basically the onboarding, the engagement strategy, and the cancellation process. Those three are the lowest hanging fruits that you can literally optimize to reduce retention. And it's really about knowing the customer and then acquiring that customer. I think that's the mistake a lot of businesses make, is that they separate that concept, that thinking. So they're trying to, the acquisition team is going full force acquiring customers, but they're not checking back with retention to make sure that they're actually acquiring customers that are staying for year 2, year 3, year 4, and year 5. So that's how we're basically optimizing it. It's really down to like the technology, the user experience, putting the customer on the center, asking the customer. I think I've spent a lot of time interviewing customers to really understand why did they even join the platform? What are their goals? What do they want to get out of it? What does success look like for them? And it's been a lot of learnings.
Has there been any like specific metrics that you've been, I mean, obviously with the pivot of the business to more of a subscription-based model, it does sort of like change the definition of what you see as retention, like as an ongoing subscription. But what are your driving metrics for retention at Mindvalley?
So we look at retention. I mean, we look at the standard metrics of like voluntary churn, involuntary churn, and all of that stuff. We break all of them. We break all of them down. It's very traditional. But I think the most important learning was definitely the North Star metric. What is that one metric that the team can gun for to make sure that has a direct correlation to churn? And the North Star metric for us is time spent on platform, because we're a learning service and we have a lot of features. It's not just learning, it's writing your thoughts down. We have like a blogging tool. We have a community. So how much time are you spending engaging with the community? So how can you turn everything into one metric that you can gun for? I think that's the important one. And every company has their metric. You just need to spend some time with the team to figure out what that is for you.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good to hear. I mean, we talk about it in Mixbound about having that focus metric for the entire business, essentially a North Star, everything feeding into that. David, I'm interested to hear from your perspective. MoneySmart, very transactional platform. People want to be able to get in it, and then make a purchase, whether it be across a whole in a very confusing marketplace, which is financial services. how do you at MoneySmart define define retention, and I suppose what is the kind of goal that you're trying to achieve for your for your users?
Yeah, so I think our sort of approach and attitude towards retention definitely aligns with this integration between the acquisition model and how that integrates and services the retention model, right? And so the marketing strategy that we have that's been in place now for some time is over dependent on the acquisition model because of the transactional nature of the platform. And so we've been putting a lot of time into the customer ownership understanding and naturally looking at the differences in terms of product experience. And so, you know, the acquisition side of our business is very web-based experience, and that's a nature of aggregation. And I guess some of the experience difficulties that you would get on mobile, for an example. And then when we start looking at retention, once we've acquired that customer, then essentially we can offer a different product experience, getting to know a customer clearly and profiling intelligence to avoid duplication of information gathering means that it blends itself better to a mobile environment opposed to web. I think, and so that's been a challenge for us as a business for sure. And look, you've called it out, a transactional model is very difficult to retain and own a customer. But I guess the benefit of our product offering is the pure coverage of products that we offer. And so there's always a typical moment to engage and sort of keep our customers you know, retained because, you know, there are several opportunities within a year which are connected to typical life stages where our products become most relevant. And so that engagement and customer experience component is very different to how we acquire customers in the first place. We don't have an acquisition team and a retention team. We have a marketing team that understands both disciplines. And it's encouraging that a lot of brands are focusing on the significance of retention now, right? But actually, it should have been ingrained into most businesses and brands for some time. And so it's fascinating. It's such a big topic.
Yeah, it's interesting. So much investment goes in the acquisition side, and it's not until you realise that the retention isn't there that the focus changes. And it's like, great, we're acquiring all these new customers, but if it's not driving the sort of overall North Star metric or focus metric, as you mentioned, Marisha, it's important to understand that. I suppose for you, Sikit, and I'm just interested from like a campaign technology perspective. We've talked around, I really like some of your examples there around the sort of the acquisition flow and sort of like walking people through that acquisition flow. Just want to understand your thoughts on that. I mean, I also think that it's almost like if you have to tell people how to actually do something, you haven't built the product simply enough to be able, it should be intuitive enough. But yeah, interested to sort of like, from your perspective, how you at Netcore feel about that kind of the sort of acquisition flow as a driver to retention.
Yeah, so I think I'm sure all of us are aware about this leaky bucket concept, right? Where the major focus is on the acquisition side of it. And I think last couple of years, a lot of marketers and growth people have kind of started focusing on retention. And I think we were always an advocate talking about that retention is the core. I think there should be good emphasis should be given on retention. And that is the point which I was highlighting in my first slide, that it is directly relating to your bottom line. It is not only about the top line or the GMV which you are making, right? So at Netcore, we have emphasized on retention, and we have built a lot of modules in our platform, like say, the example which I gave, that the guiding users so that they are able to do the discovery better, right? In your app, if you have launched new product in your app or in your website, how do you guide users, right? Or while they are there on your app or while they are there on your website, right? And I would like to give an example, right? Say, how does it happen, right? So that it kind of correlates it better, right? We were working with one of the largest music streaming apps, something similar to Spotify, where we saw they were facing a day one retention problem. So, and I'm sure Marissa and David would be, and in fact, including you, Scott, you would be knowing one of the major problem which industry is facing from the app side of it primarily is your day 0, day 7, day 30 retention, right? Which is kind of as a very task at hand for all of us to ensure that how do we make my engagement strategy proper during these time so that client retains with us. So they were facing a day 1 challenge wherein day 1 retention was a challenge, and there was a massive churn which was happening on day 1 itself. We were able to correlate one event which was leading to that, and we looked at what is prompting users to retain, right? We looked at there was an icon on an app which was a budge icon, which was all the users who were going on the budge icon, the chances of they retaining was very high. So taking that insight, what we did for all the users, new users who were coming on the app, we spotlighted that specific icon with the help of our coach Mark, and we showed them basically to go to that budge icon. And that had helped that brand in increasing the retention by 12% on the day 1. So
yeah,
that is the impact of it. Yeah. Scott.
Yeah. That's a really good example, and in fact, Marisha, I've been through the application and the acquisition funnel on Mindvalley, and yeah, one of the things that like I really love about it is just the personalization, the sort of data that it finds in that acquisition process is like finding out what most your user is most interested in learning about, and then that will automatically give sort of contextual courses that are going to be relevant to that person. Can you sort of talk a little bit more about the sort of contextual customer experience that you try and create at Mindvalley to create retention?
Yeah, so the thing is that when, like I mentioned before, everyone talks about acquisition and they talk about retention, but a lot of people don't focus on the onboarding process. And the onboarding process is the first impression. That's when a customer decides if they want to stay with you for the long run or they're going to leave in the next couple of months. So first thing we did was focus on that onboarding experience. And a lot of people churn because there's a value gap. That means the acquisition team is acquiring a customer promising something, but when they go to the platform, it's a different experience and it wasn't what they were expecting. That's the number one reason why people churn. So what we wanted to do is wow them in the first impression. So what we did is we asked them a series of questions. So it was like an onboarding survey. We asked them about their goals. Why did they come? What are the growth areas that they want to focus on? What is their job title? And what city are they in? Okay, very simple survey. And then what we did is personalize the whole experience to their goals. So we created a custom curriculum that was specifically for them. And then we added them to a network where they were connecting with people of the same job title and people in the same city. So it was hyper relevant to them, to the experience and their growth. And all we did was just make sure we were wowing them and giving them value upfront in the first 30 days. It was very, very simple, but it was just literally customer centric. It's not a lot of rocket science. It's really understanding what they need and what will help them achieve success in the fastest time possible.
Yeah, that's a really interesting example. I mean, I'm sure for many companies, like we go through the same discussion internally at Mixpanel, is like our sign up funnel is like, how many different questions do you want to ask? Like how much friction should you remove from that process to make it as seamless as possible, but also take enough information to be able to give the most relevant and contextual experience. And it's a real balance. It's a fine line to juggle. I'm interested from your perspective, David. Buying financial products, there's a lot of information that you require to submit, and depending on what you're looking to purchase. But yeah, I'm interested in sort of how you think about that original sort of both query funnel and like when people were sort of like running searches, and how you drive people to actually then sort of go to like sign up to be able to give more contextual experience.
Yeah, so we've been invested into sort of behavioral data collection now for some time. So, I mean, our first party data strategy is sort of 3 years old. We were one of the first advertisers when I joined the group to to build out a DMP at the time, and clearly the industry's moved on and we're now on a CDP journey. But one of the significance of that strategy is that we could connect who's coming in from search, which is the main entry point into our marketplace, understand what they're doing, because when you're looking to make a financial decision, your ability to convert instantly is quite low. Because there's a consideration phase, and you need to do your research, and you need to be well informed. And so what this first party data strategy allows us to do is understand which products people are looking at within the platform, how far have they gone in that journey, and typically what was the dropout point within that journey. And also our content plays a huge role to this. What content are people consuming? What topics are they reading? And how can we then have a more meaningful retargeting strategy to bring them back in when they're ready to make that financial commitment? And some of the lead time and the sales time around these products, particularly if you look at stuff like mortgages or refinancing your house, these are big conversations that don't typically blend itself well to DR activity, right? And so once we've created that audience profile, and all of our media bidding is audience-based via the DMP, integrated into Google, integrated back into Facebook, we can continue to re-engage to the point of transaction. Now, at the point that we aid them to that transaction, we have a similar onboarding process to what we've already heard. That data intelligence collecting from day one is significant because it drives the contextual relevancy of our marketing message or our content strategy to re-engage. And once we re-engage, typically we can match other financial products to that journey. But it's all underpinned with first-party intelligence, either on the behavioral side or the customer intelligence side. And we're now moving into a CDP journey to enhance that. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, that is fascinating. Yeah, I mean, hearing you talk about, you were sort of money supermarket in the UK, which are kind of one of the pioneers of this industry, and so. Yeah, it's you've obviously had a lot of experience going throughout many different markets as well. And yeah, just hearing you talk there about like the content being a really critical part of both your acquisition, but also retention. Can you talk a little bit around sort of like, I mean, content is king, that's an old saying, but for a business like Money Smart, how you think about sort of like content and targeting to be able to increase retention, increase people coming back?
Yeah, it's a really big part of not only our acquisition strategy, but also our retention and customer engagement. Because if you take a typical life stage of one of our customers, there are many financial decisions that need to be made within that journey, right? And clearly, depending on where you are in your own life stage will dictate which products are most relevant to you. And I guess the role of content allows us to drive the customer engagement, because there's a lot of research and education around some financial decisions for our customers, right? There's a lot of complexity sometimes with picking the right product. There's a lot of knowledge gap in some of the understanding of certain products and why people need some things and don't need others. And so if you imagine that our content strategy sits at the heart of that consideration process, where we can aid, educate, and inform, purchasing decisions. And so, I mean, it's fascinating because in some sense, we're known more for our content in our markets than our marketplace and comparison. And that tells me that our content strategy is really working.
Yeah. That and in fact, it's interesting. Obviously, you're coming from a fintech perspective, and Marisha coming from an edutech. And I remember when we caught up before, Marisha, and we've spoken to you. Obviously, you've used Mixpanel in the past, like you used Mixpanel, so we've met before. But you talked about how people come for the learning and the content, but they stay for the community on Mindvalley. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've sort of developed community on the platform to be able to drive retention, in addition to the obviously, which is the key for Mindvalley, is like the amazing content that you've built.
Yeah, so that's what we noticed fairly recently. We never took, I mean, we always thought we're all about the content, right? And that's why people come, that's what they want, that's the value that we want to provide to them. And fair enough, we were acquiring people because they wanted to focus on that one area. So they wanted to solve a problem. We were acquiring them because of that problem. But then what happened is that these people were so overwhelmed by their results. They were so enlightened by their results. They wanted to tell other people about it, and they wanted to talk about it. So they started actually communicating with other members and reaching out to other members and talking organically. They started building that community organically. And then what we did is just facilitate it. So we actually built a social media app for our community where they can meet one another. We build these local networks so that they can actually do meetups within their city, within their vicinity. Or for example, if I went to Singapore, I for sure have a Mindvalley community in Singapore that I can meet up and talk to, you know, even have dinner with, start a business with, all of that stuff. And then we notice other things. People love to share their learnings. You know, as people learn, they love to write about it. So we created sort of a blogging platform called Mindvalley Insights, where people could share their notes and become thought leaders. So it was literally just paying attention to the natural behavior of customers and how they like to learn, what they like to use, how they were using the platform, how they were interacting with other members. Because learning is very multidimensional. It's not really from just sitting in front of your screen. You can learn from conversations, you can learn from friendships, interactions, reading, all sorts of things. So it was really about paying attention to them, their natural behaviors, and trying to make sure we're delivering value and creating a platform that was facilitating that learning.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Being able to bring the sort of community to offline as well, to create further engagement and retention. There was actually a really good question in the and we're really open to take as many questions as possible from the hundreds or so people that are online. But one of the questions that came in was talking specifically, Marisha, around how you went around that pivot from going from a one-time purchase to a subscription-based model. And I guess it's both from like within the app, like a product perspective, how you made that change and how you analyzed the success of that pivot.
So it started off as a test. Everything in Mindvalley starts off as a test. It starts off as a hypothesis. We started off as a test. We created a product. It went through multiple iterations. It never started the way it is now. It went through multiple iterations. It started off as a bundle, like 3 programs together. And then it was like the whole library, everything yours. And it started off because we were looking at the LTV of our customers, and people were buying about 2 programs, and then it was really expensive to remarket to them again buy a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th. But a majority were buying 2. So we thought if we just bundle them together and had a subscription, it will make marketing acquisition a lot easier, and it will give customers a whole lot of value. So that's how it started. And then we started testing it. So we started offering customers 2 options. You get one option, buy the single program, or you get the full subscription. And majority of customers were naturally choosing the subscription. And over time, we decided that it just made sense to kill the transactional and just go full subscription and let people see the full experience of Mindvalley, because you don't really get the tools, the platform, the events, all of those other stuff with the transactional product. You get it with the subscription. So yeah, it was a natural progression. Everyone that was on auto menu, as soon as we put it there, 60% of customers were making a decision with choose subscription. So it just one thing led to another, and now we just want to go full in.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So did you see much of a change when you removed the option to be able to, because you must have A/B tested this as well, of removing the option of just buying 2 courses or to buy the full annual subscription? And did you find actually once you removed the option, there was just a higher conversion rate to people sign up to the full subscription?
So no, it was again a series of tests, because when we first decided to remove the transactional part, I did it as a split test to see what is the impact on revenue, and there was a significant impact on revenue. It was 30% lower because of the way the funnel was built. But then I realized it was literally the point of communicating the offer, because the offer is completely different, the value proposition is completely different. So repositioning that whole offer, and now it's on par. So in fact, I get the same money upfront, but I also this money recurs. So it actually down the line is the subscription model is actually performing a lot better than the transactional.
Interesting. That's fascinating. And so yeah, I also like the concept of like they buy 2 full courses, but then the cost to actually re-engage with that customer and to retain them in the future is huge there. Now you look at your subscription product, is there like a specific metric that you actually look at to go, this is an engaged user and they're going to retain? Is there like, what metric do you do? Is it like number of courses run in 1 month, or is there a specific sort of like cohort of user that you look at that is a high retention? And also on the flip side, is there like, what do you use as a metric of like, this is actually a risk of churn customer?
So there's a lot of metrics. There's so many. That's like how many friends they have, how much time do they spend on the platform on a weekly basis, how frequent they come back. There's a whole range, and usually the person that's most likely to churn is someone that never completed a program, because our programs actually designed to deliver that value and that transformation. It's why they came in the first place. So if they don't see that value, they don't actually complete that action, then they're most likely to churn. So that's why like the onboarding process is to make sure that they have added friends, they have written a journal, they have started a quest, they're actually doing their quest, and they've attended 1 or 2 calls, because we do a lot of live workshops. So attended 1 or 2 live workshops, and if they're engaging with this content, then they're good. They're good to go.
Yeah. Fascinating. David, you talked a little bit about like LTV of customers as well. Like how do you like define the lifetime value for your for your users, and how do you go about sort of increasing those metrics?
Yeah, so I think typically how we're looking at it now, right, which I think was a little bit different historically, is looking at, I guess, the relationship between reducing our dependency on acquisition, right? And clearly then the retention journey and lifetime value, which for us as a problem we're trying to solve is how do we encourage customers to buy X amount of product during a set period, right? So we're paying for them to come in, right? Which is our acquisition dependence. And we're trying to avoid re-recruiting in the market when customers are looking for other products, and our product portfolio is quite vast. And so naturally our contextual relationship in terms of comms, marketing message, and just engagement is there to drive repeat purchase. And so it's segmenting customers, determining their lifetime value based on how many products, or the propensity of how many products they can buy during a set period. That could be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And if we anchor that in as a metric as to how do we determine whether that is successful as a measurement criteria, it all comes down to the business metric that we optimize for, which is profitability. And you can determine revenue per customer, how many products are being bought, and then you look at your margins within that model to determine the GP centricness of our marketing. And so both acquisition is optimized around GP, and both retention is optimized around GP. We're more advanced in the acquisition, which is why we're too dependent, if that makes sense. And I guess the problem and the journey we're on is around how do we retain more of our customers, and clearly that impacts more of the bottom line because we're not paying for them to come in.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And you talked about it there before, but the first party data around that is like key to sort of driving that retention strategy as well. There's some really good questions coming in actually from on the feed here. Song Chen's asked one around recommendation engines and it being part of your project and app. And do you consider that recommendation engine is playing the vital part in your customer retention strategy to study the customer behavior and preferences? Interested first to start with you, Marisha, like how, I mean, our belief at Mixpanel is that something like recommendation engine is kind of like, especially when it's based upon content, is like a proprietary sort of value proposition that you give to your customers. So you give to your users, being able to sort of like own the experience is 100% why people use your app. But I'm interested from your perspective, Marisha, whether you sort of use a technology to be able to do that, or whether you've built that kind of recommendation in-house and how you've gone about doing that.
Yeah, so actually there's countless studies done on this, and personalizations and customizations actually increases the perceived value of the product in the customer's eyes and increases willingness to pay. So whatever product you have, if you really want to wow your customer and retain them for the second year, there has to be a degree of personalization. You know, you can do it even as simple as, "Hi Scott, here's your video," you know, something as simple as that goes a long way. And there's a lot of studies that prove that. So I highly recommend you find a way to personalize your experience for your customer. In Mindvalley's case, we actually build all our tech in-house. So we have an AI, we've built our own AI system, a machine learning system that kind of studies the behavior of customers and what products they consume first, second, and third, and then makes that recommendations to the user, saying that, you know, in this area, or in CMOs in Malaysia, they all are learning this program, and we recommend you to start this program, or watch this call, or meet these 5 people. So highly recommend you do that. We build it all in-house. There's also no-code softwares that you can use that are very, very cool and up and coming, and you can build a lot of these recommendations without any coding experience if you're a startup. So check them out and see. There's a lot of tools in the industry.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks very much. And David, from MoneySmart's perspective, like how do you think about sort of like recommending both products and content and I suppose for every different product there's a different prioritization. I'm sure much of that is based upon what's available on the market at any one time rather than the user. But yeah, how do you consider it at MoneySmart?
Yeah, look, I think our ability and effectiveness of being able to drive product recommendations is key to the customer experience. And, you know, I guess it's built within the core of our understanding of customers. And so typically, if you take some of our bigger product verticals, and we've got, you know, tens and hundreds of products on our platform, the one that drives us most volume in terms of acquisitions, there's a fairly comprehensive experience that they go through to determine an understanding of them. And we ask a lot of lifestyle-based questions, you know, which is sort of ambition-led, but also life stage articulation, which is demographic-based, right? And based on that intelligence, if we do our job right, the customer experience should determine ongoing contextual recommendations around future product. And so, you know, I mean, that drives the lifetime value ambitions that we have. I think on top of that, you've got the content role, and how can we continue to recommend the very best story to read, or the very best video to watch. And that's driven based on question sets within the onboarding, which is sort of what's on their mind financially, for an example. You know, what are the big financial decisions that our customers are looking to make? And I guess what are the knowledge gaps that our customers have, you know, based on those decisions. And so what we can quickly do is provide them with the information, you know, the editorial experience, which educates them and upskills them. You know, financial literacy in our markets is still an ongoing journey. And I think, if we're able to play a role where we are the brand of choice and the consumer marketplace of choice, that customers feel like they're learning before they're committing to a decision, then hopefully we remain top of mind when they're ready to purchase. And so, it's our ability to drive meaningful, tailored and personal product recommendation based on where someone is in their life stage versus the destinational hub for learning to equip themselves to make the very best decisions. And so that recommendation engine is actually quite key to the experience that our customers have. Are we perfect with that? Definitely not. But it's something that we're beginning to put more focus in as we own more of our customer to move away from that transactional model that you mentioned.
Yeah. And for in terms of like being able to deliver that experience in terms of your tech team, like do you have like data scientists that are building that algorithm recommendation engine? Are you using any sort of external technology to be able to help you sort of push out the content?
Yeah, look, we've been on a journey. We have an in-house, very, very capable in-house tech and product team. We've just onboarded a new CPO in the past 6 months, and definitely he's bringing in a lot of energy to, I guess, where we can go. And we're putting in a ton load of investment into our product thinking, right? And so, it's clearly our investment into our CDP world, I think, is going to allow us to have a more effective engagement strategy around product recommendation. And I think that integration is going to enhance our product experience without us having to go too deep into the AI world, which I think can be a little bit of a buzz topic, if I'm being honest, opposed to an effective strategy. And so we're trying to avoid this, hey, we want to be an AI company, and try and remain grounded on good customer experience. And we believe we can execute that without going to AI in our narrative. And we do believe, or I believe firmly, that our in-house capabilities, new CPO on board, we're just about to commit to the CDP migration away from the DMP. We've been playing with first-party data for years. And I think that, for me, that data intelligence of first party is going to drive our recommendation and engagement way more effectively than us building an AI system.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And so, I suppose to you, sir, just we're starting to get into like the kind of stacks of technologies for companies to be able to deliver this type of customer experience. David there talked about sort of the transition from DMP to CDP, but what do you see sort of like as the most effective for some customers that you work with in terms of like their setup that has created like the best customer experience?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up that personalization thing. I think obviously that's a personalization, and the recommendation kind of plays a very vital role today. And I think there are different sort of personalization, we all know. Just wanted to bring this. So there is one is content personalization, right? AI personalization will not work for everyone. AI recommendation, till the time you don't have those many products where you can do the data capturing, and based on that you can do the recommendation, right? So for majority of companies where they don't have that many products for them to sell, right? For them, the content personalization makes much more sense. AI will not help them. AI would be primarily for companies which are primarily into e-commerce, having more than a minimum threshold, which we look at, right? So we have a module, Scott, which is we do both content personalization and AI-based personalization both. But primarily categorization is done that for AI-based personalization, which is recommendation, which you want to do, it has to be 500 products minimum. Then only your personalization or recommendation will work. Otherwise, your machine learning is not going to be effective, that much effective, right? For companies like, say, Money Control, or to some extent Mindvalley also, I think the content personalization, and that's where giving that flexibility to the brand to use those rules based on the pattern which they are seeing, so that they can do banner level personalization, or they can do different icon level personalization. Today, a lot of layout personalization is happening, right? A user versus a B user. You can do a layout personalization as well, right? So those are the things which are there. And what we are seeing in personalization, I think that is going to be the core of it. Some of the team are building in-house. And I think like us, we are also giving as a third party no code, as Marisa spoke about, that we have a no code platform for personalization and recommendation, which we are giving to our brands. So that is there on the personalization side of it, Scott. And I think other trends which we are looking at, and just driving back discussion to the retention side of it, right, which was there. Churn, arresting churn is a big problem, right? I think what we are talking about. So we have built a lot of module, and we are seeing a lot of companies investing a lot to arrest the churn. So we took a help of AI to build recommendation in terms of prediction, right? Which is a predictive segment. So people who are likely to churn, if you are able to see that as a segment, how do you engage with that set of customer will be different, right? As against the others. So we have built these predictive models based on which you can take an action. Those are very intelligent segments where you can do that engagement to not churn, right? And based on the data which you have, with the help of path analysis or with the help of correlation analysis, we are also able to understand that which are the events which are creating a negative impact.
Mm-hmm.
So then for all the users who are coming for you for the first time, based on those negative events, you nudge the customer so that that kind of negative event does not occur on your app. So there are lot of science is going in that direction, which is more to do with how do you arrest it, knowing the path which the users are following, what is the minimum to achieve that objective for to get the final funnel transaction done, right? What is the minimum path which is being followed? So guiding users towards there so that it is very convenient for users to achieve what they have come for an app or on a web, right? Rather than doing everything else which you have to offer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really valid point. I think there's a sort of like, there's a scale, right, between personalization and then recommendation. I think personalization is like, as Marisha, just the initial introduction, making it feel like high second when you come into app is like quite simple, I think, and yeah, making sure that's yeah, using tools to do that. But we're almost at time actually, but yeah, it's been a really enjoyable discussion. We've got quite a few sort of other questions that are in the Q&A there that we'll try to get to if you stay on the platform, that we'll respond to you. We will be sending out a poll as well to all of the attendees for you to complete. I suppose like parting words then is always a good way to finish. Just like what would be your number one recommendation as you start to think about increasing retention for your business? So Marisha, sorry to spring this one on you, but yeah, if you could make a number one recommendation, regardless of like industry, and what you should think about if you want to sort of drive to increase retention for your business.
Focus on the onboarding and talk to all your customers.
Love that. There's qualitative feedback is like using the both quantitative and qualitative feedback, looking at the data of the acquisition funnel and being able to improve and iterate on that. But there's nothing better than just hearing verbatim feedback from your customers. Love it. David, from you, sir?
Yeah, look, I think focus on customer experience sounds like an obvious one, but it encapsulates all of what we've covered here. And really focus on your engagement strategies. Don't assume that just because a customer has been onboarded, that customer is going to remain a customer without the proper engagement.
Love it. And lastly, from you, Sakit.
Yeah, I will tell you from the product aspect of it, Scott. Going for a no-code product, right? I think Marisa also mentioned about that. I think no-code products are available, like say what we also spoke about, right? Our contextual walkthrough or the personalization and no code which could be used by your product team and the marketing team. So go for a no code products which are available, which gives you a lot of agility to your product teams and the tech team to do a lot of experiment on the fly, whether you want to do A/B testing, whether you want to do different nudges testing. I think that is the thing which I would recommend if I were to just select one.
Very good. Thank you. We're on time, everyone. We've been able to maintain everyone throughout the group, so throughout participants. So thanks very much for being engaged, for the great questions. Marisha, thank you for attending from KL. David from sunny Bali, and Sakit, I hope to meet you for coffee in Singapore very soon. Thank you for Tech in Asia to hosting along with Netcore. I hope everyone has a great afternoon.